Hey everyone, thanks for joining us at Wave Podcast. So Wave's tied to the Ride the Wave Foundation. We empower people by providing free training to people seeking purpose. So anyone that's homeless, going through a hard time on the street, they could come in, get practical training, business type skills like how to find a purpose, positive leadership, mental health strategies. And on the flip side, providing training to people in middle to upper class to have the skills to be able to approach people in the streets they normally wouldn't. I'm Jeff Fisher. Let's ride the wave. Hey everybody, thanks for joining the Wave Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Fisher, and we're continuing to ride the wave with Javon Blue, who's with us once again. And Javon Blue is the host of the Kingdoms Talks podcast. With me is the man, myth, and legend, as usual, Mr. Mark Robinson. How you doing, Mark?
What's going on, everybody?
What's happening, my man?
What's going on?
How are things going? Good. Javon, thanks for coming back again.
You know,
appreciate you for coming here. I do a one word every year through John Gordon, and this year is patience. Got to improve on that. Last year was encourage, and I did a counter word this year, which was distraction, because I really feel like that is the counter to the patience that I'm trying to pursue.
Yeah.
And when we had spoke about that just briefly, I thought we were getting into something pretty interesting and good. And I think that's a pretty, prevalent tactic, if you will, or thing that's happening to us that's taken us away from personal connections like we have, and like how things are transpiring through Wave. When I met CJ and Derail and things like that, I really could see it. I could see that if we dropped some of those distractions, it could be beautiful. So just wanted to get in and dive into that, and I guess my first question, right? What distracts you most, Javon? What are your distractions?
I would say, first off, glad to be back.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
It's always an amazing time. I feel like, you could be free and just truthful here. So shout out to that, and any guests who want to come on next time. This is a place to be. So what distracts me, right? I would say a plethora of things. Whether it's women, right? Just seeing that advertised, which is a lot of lust, right? Before coming to Christ, man, I was in the clubs. I was dealing with a lot of women, playing the games, and that really has always been number one on my list, right? Of like, if I feed into this, it's going to go down a rabbit hole, or it's going to be a grave that I have dug my own self. But with that, that's really that lust aspect, and just being married, addressing this, a lot of men think, well, I'll just get married and then the lust will go away. That is far from the truth. Right. I don't know if you can attest to that now, Jeff, but
there's always something.
There's always something. So that it actually heightens, right? Anytime you decide that you want to fight against anything lustful, desirable, anything that's going against your discipline or your flesh, it actually heightens, and it, I believe the enemy turns up the volume to get you to fall. So, women is definitely number one. And number two, identity, right? That has always been a distraction for me, as far as wanting to be a part of this so that I can call myself this. And that segue into, I'm guessing it came from me not really knowing my dad, right? So really having that yearning, or just wanting to be called something, or be held by a title or like a confirmation of something, right? So this was before coming to Christ, just really knowing my identity and who I belong to, just that aspect of identity. So whether that was, man, I planted my identity in my football team, right, in high school, or whether, gang banging, different stuff like that, associating myself with certain people, and now I got a title, and now I got people backing me as far as this status, and just so much other stuff, right? So between that lustful aspect of women and like identity, those two will always be the battle that I'm going with. And we actually talked about this. I think at IHOP one time, when I was like, man, there's three things that, men fall with, and that's the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life.
Right.
Those three aspects are the biggest distraction to humankind. So yeah, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I shared with Carmela, one of my fears of your concerns is staying humble at a high state of mind when things are going well. So in that high state, saying, okay, like, let's not get too full of myself. Let's not. So having people in my life that hopefully will hold me accountable, but also scripture is that for me. If I'm feeling a certain way or I'm elevated or that pride kicks in, it's a gauge knowing that I wasn't perfect like Jesus. That means that I'm not all that. So that to me is a check in place for me to be able to go and get into that and then read word and things like that. So that otherwise like we talked about in the last episode that we sat down was otherwise I think you could be a tyrant. You could really, without that moral code and without that check and balance of being like, all right, I'm not God.
Yeah.
I'm not that full of myself because somebody came prior that was perfect. It's a way to measure myself against something that I'm not. So I know who I am because of who I know I'm not.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. A lot of people, plant their flag of identity into the who they're not. All right. Which is basically a lot of people going deeper in this. A lot of people associate their identity with their titles at their workplace. Right. And they really take that and they become a god over somebody's life. And you're like, bro, this is your employee. Like, people have a life outside of this.
It's not that serious.
It's really not. But people hold on to that because they struggle with identity, and that's something to watch out for when you're working for somebody.
And when you say identity, could you be more specific about what you mean? I mean, I know you said it could be, because it could be multiple things. A job title, your material possessions.
Yeah.
Just things like that.
Yeah. So identity meaning how you function mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically with a status, right? Or like a title. So we talked about on the previous episode about being made in the image, right? That image creates an identity for somebody to fulfill their duties here on earth, right? So if I know I'm a certain way, for example, going down to a practical aspect, if I know that I play for the Brooklyn Nets, there's a standard and there's a code, there's principles that I live by because my identity is a Brooklyn Net versus somebody else on the Lakers, right? They might have a different way that they do brotherhood, different way they practice.
Different way they do business.
It's just,
the culture of the
that's it.
The locker room.
Yeah.
It's different.
So different, I believe atmospheres, geography, different things play into the formation of an identity.
Okay.
All right.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think that's great.
Some people hold their title and their job description as like it's like they go overboard with it.
Yeah.
They hold that. Oh, I'm the boss. I'm the CEO, and they take that and run with it. You know what I mean? And they take it and they
maybe taking advantage at times.
Yeah,
of their
they taking advantage of their position, and then when it comes to like your employees, you look down on employees because one, they're an employee, they work for you.
Bang your mark.
Two, it's like having that title.
Yeah.
Some people were like, "Oh, I'm better than you. You're nothing to me because I'm the boss, or because I'm this, because I'm that." Like,
and on the flip side, I have worked with good mentors and people that are leaders. One of the things we want to bring into the principles with Wave is servant leadership, positive leadership, things like that. So they're all, and a lot of that is connected.
Deeper on the servant leadership, because I think that's a skill in in its own practice.
Yeah,
I think we should talk more.
Yeah, definitely, because it's also proven positivity in the workforce is proven to produce much more. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to be beaten down and go to work, so you can only crack the whip as a manager for so long and be that way. And where communication is not there, I think doubt fills that gap.
Yeah,
so as a somebody who's trying to be a leader, build the organization, our company, being transparent, I think is really not just, because there's always a back end. There's something going on in someone's life too. If they're in charge or in a position of power, maybe something happened in my personal life where money was spent. But prior, I said, here are the projects that we're doing. And then something came up where we couldn't do it. We had to make an adjustment, but I didn't say anything. And then you're festering on the other end because the communication wasn't there, thinking the worst. Oh, well, he doesn't do what he says, or we're not going to, and it goes away. But so I think that one, filling in with people that are better than me, admitting that they're better than me in certain areas and tasks, working to enhance, like when I went to that Entree Leadership, and if people go to www.ridethewave.org, go through all the interactions, scroll down on our social media as well, that first interaction, ever since then, a lot of those principles are going to come out and really be put forth, I think, through Wave. So it's a
beautiful thing, man. I think that servant leadership is such an important thing because it helps the person that is distracted come into a focus of how they should be led, right? So going deeper is if somebody really doesn't know who they are or what they're supposed to do in life or anything, and then they interact with an organization like Wave, and now you have a plethora of leadership teachers guiding people on purpose, on focus, how to get back on track, right? That helps somebody because number one, you're serving them in a way where you're bringing your humility and your understanding down to their level so that you could raise them up to the level that they want to go. So being a servant in that area is really hearing the other person's point of view and then using your expertise to help them in the areas that they need help in.
Yeah, and I think admitting when I don't know, and then bringing those people on to fill in the gaps that are better than me, and knowing where I want to be. And I was saying before with the Entree Leadership, I'm going to be going back. I got a VIP to the Master Series. So really diving in deep of my own personal, which I think was a gift from my mother. She was very social. When she went to work at Honeywell, a lot of people went up to her. They knew her. So I think I have that a bit. And now it's time to optimize it because there's a gift here and there's something that we could do to really make an impact in a positive way with the community. And honestly, the distraction things, it worries me that I'll get too distracted and I won't do it, or I don't feel like the passion's going to go away, but it's definitely something that I worry about getting in my own way because I feel I'm the only one that can screw it up.
It's part of the journey, bro. Literally, I did a podcast episode on this, and it was called "Don't Get Distracted by the Good Things." Right? A lot of people get distracted by the good things, and what the good things do is that, let me back it up. The enemy sends good things to distract people from purpose, right? People think that it always comes through destruction. It always comes through this trauma. But sometimes there's good things in your life that you have accepted that have taken you off course when it comes to your purpose. Now, what that looks like is, like I tell people, every opportunity isn't for you, right? You have to vet the opportunity, pray about it, and really see, is this in the direction where I'm going? Right. If it is not, even if it looks good, you don't know that accepting that could push your dream back 6 to 10 years because a good life is one of the greatest distractions to a purposeful life.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I think that self-awareness, which could be uncovered through writing and other proactive approaches, is really important as well, to have an understanding of, like, for example, budget wise, right? I could go ahead and just start ordering stuff on Amazon. So why not put in a gift card or add to my Amazon account just the money I want to spend for the month, and then when I'm out. I can't go over it. So it's almost like putting a trap, knowing that I'll do it anyway. Like I tell Kristen, I love candy, I love sweets. So please don't have it in the house, sort of thing. I'll know myself enough to set up certain things in place. I know I got to drink water in the morning, so making sure that there's water right next to me, having my bag laid out, which I could do a better job of. But things that streamline time, money be not money, but streamline time, efficiency. Because now I've entered a space where I'm always looking at what's priority and how could we get streamlined processes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
that's literally the point that I would love for my household to get to is really disqualifying those activities that don't point me to the direction of where I need to go. So if it's like, get a cleaner for the house every week. You know what I'm saying? If now I'm not saying that you have to do this, but if there's a person that's like, man, your house just can't get in order because you're so busy, right? Those are avenues where you delegate that activity to help you stay on track, right? If cutting grass is a problem for you, listen, build your life up in a way where you have a weekly or bi-weekly landscaper. You know what I'm saying? And that frees up so much of the time and the mental clarity that you need to be able to produce the purpose every single day.
Do you think it's possible that we could choose what we worry about, but worry about things that are more constructive? What I mean is, don't worry about the dishes that are left in the sink, but worry about your kids doing something tomorrow and make sure you support them. You know what I mean? Like redirecting our fears. Because, and I meant to mention this in the last one, we were talking about slavery a bit, but I don't think there's anything around it. There'll always be, when I had that wave come over me with Daryl, and I felt like I had to tap on his window, which is one of the reasons why we're sitting here, my relationship, among other things. Yeah. It was me getting through a fear. It was me getting through being nervous, something. So a lot of people right now, I think, that are in a position where they're distracted or they don't go out as much. There's that fear there and needs some exposure there, sort of like when the stake was in the ground and everybody was looking at the snakes. The snake, you're looking into a fear, essentially, to go past into the wilderness, past that fear into the promised land. So I also think that that's something that's important for people to realize, that being afraid is a good thing, and you'd be surprised once you push it and go to the other side, what's there.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, man. Listen, I love that because I believe that people need to switch their fears, right? Go from the traumatizing, trembling fear, that scarcity type of stuff, where it's like dark and demonic, like that, like leave that alone and switch to the fear of the Lord, right? Really fearing him in a reverence way where he can guide you into the things. But here you go.
What do you mean by reverence?
So like a lot of times in the Bible where you say the fear of the Lord, right, is the beginning of wisdom. That Solomon says. Like that a lot of time is the reverence that you're giving to God. So they're saying, bow down. They was really speaking on like throne activity where humans went to the gods and they bowed down and they gave it all. And it was such an honor to be in the presence of an almighty. So
almost in awe per se, not necessarily as I'm totally terrified and scared. So people may misunderstand that fear is not necessarily that.
Yeah. Right. Like even the word, like you said, like the word awesome used to be a heavy word back then when they talked about God. Like he's awesome. Now we just throw it out. He's like, oh man, that's awesome.
He's an awesome guy.
You did an awesome job today.
Now it's just a regular word. Like, oh, that was awesome.
Yeah. No, but like awesome has some significance.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So with that, it's really switching that fear, but also I think that people like don't accept the fact that you have to do things in spite of fear, right? Is there's a lot of things that I'm fearful within my life, right? And like just being a father and a husband is just two of them, two different roles. Two different mental capacities and things of that sort. And there's things that I'm fearful with, man. I'm fearful of the fact that, man, what if I can't, provide one day? Like something tragic happened, or like, man, like something tragic happens to me where my wife now has to take care of me for the rest of our 40 years of our life we got. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, so that stuff, like, do it, but you got to do things in spite of it. And then,
but that is I don't want to say constructive concerns. Those are real concerns. You're not stressing over something material or something. It's of value. That was where I was leading to.
Yeah.
You know, it's
that makes sense.
Right. I mean, is it really worth what I'm fearing? Is it just a delusion that I'm succumbing to, or when I do it,
you should use it as ammo, of doing what you're doing. So like, I think it was, man, what is his name that did Apple?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs was talking about like living every single day like it was your last, like if you were going to die today, right? And because one day it will be.
Yeah.
And if you don't have, like, going back to the samurai aspect that I did in another episode, is that the reason why they were so effective on the battlefield is because every samurai understood that they are dead. All right. And if you understand that aspect in a fight, that you are dead right now, which means everything in front of you really doesn't matter. That's a different type of fight. So they don't have, like, when they left for battle, they understood that they're fighting for something. They understood that they had family back home, but that family does not matter anymore.
Right.
Because I'm dead to that. And this is the only thing I focus on. And I think when it comes to distractions, like, a lot of men today, because we don't have that harsh reality of, like, warfare and the unknown of living out there in the life anymore, we allow our reason to be the reason that we fail. So if your reason of getting up to go to work every day is to provide for your family, that can also be the reason why you fail, because you're not doing certain things because you're scared that it might prevent you from going back home. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that is why you have to die to yourself with a lot of things when it comes to purpose, man.
And that's why they say you are your own worst enemy. That's why they say that. Like, you are your own worst enemy. Like me, my fear is, one of my fears is, like, okay, since I lived the life that I lived and I've been through the things that I've been through, one of my fears is I will never be. I'm fearful that I will never be at a level where I can be like, okay, I can look at my life and be satisfied.
Okay.
And be complete.
But you said at one point you always felt like there was something different about you, or that you were meant for much more, right? At one point, like, even though you're sitting back and you're in your situation.
Yeah, like, I always said that as a adolescent, when I was younger, I always felt that I was different, because, like I said, I didn't take part in a lot of things that my peers were taking it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The gangs, I was never in a gang. I never sold drugs. I've never done a lot of things that my peers were doing.
Right.
But at the same time, I was caught up in what my peers was doing, but not actually being in it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes total sense, bro.
So it's like, now that, I'm getting older, I'll be 50 in a few more years. Not to put my age out there. But,
you look great.
Like, one of my fears alongside of that would be like, would I ever have a family of my own? Would I ever have any kids, or have that wife to come home to, or, have that significant other, or will I ever experience that particular thing in life?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and it's like, if I don't, and it's like, I'm at a point where it's like, I've tried to get myself together to get the woman, like I said before.
Yeah.
Like, I've tried, not self-consciously, I've tried to do things to get the woman of my dreams, or try to find a woman of my dreams.
Yeah.
Just, like, I haven't been on a lot of dating sites and none of that. Like, I just recently, within the last few years, started going on dating sites and doing different things to
tie that in too. Yeah, to tie that in to kind of what you're saying, Javon,
distraction.
it's distraction, but also it's seeking externally for something to fill a gap internally. You had mentioned, and I thought you gave great advice on the last show about young men, Black community specifically, about looking into scripture or whatever, something like that, to start with the internal process. Because like a coffee bean comes from the inside out. It can transform your universe, but if you're not working on yourself first, and you don't have some self-awareness, I think that, at least in my case, I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I took the time behind the scene when not many people were looking. And I went to the libraries because it really opens up into something that's beautiful, and anyone can do it at any time.
Yeah, it's a quote that I live by. Miyamoto Musashi said this. He's one of the greatest samurais to ever live. He never lost a duel. Like he had like 47 duels. And he said, today is the victory over yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow like is the victory over lesser men. And what he mean by that is him saying today is the victory over yourself from yesterday, meaning that you've got here, which means you've already conquered yesterday, which makes you victorious. But tomorrow is you are victorious over the man who never did the discipline, who never got up, who never tried to do it, who never decided to write the book, to start the business. You're now victorious over the lesser man. Yeah. And that right there, I mean, he used it in a samurai aspect where it's like, the man you go into battle, they have not put in the work that you did yesterday. So he's going to die.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I said it before, I heard it on Ed Milet's podcast, but I'm not sure if it was directly from him, that you could choose, there's two pains in life you could choose from: pain of discipline,
pain of regret.
Yep.
Hey, that's big time. And all the studies show, it's proven that all the older people that get interviewed later in life, they do not regret things that they did or said to other people. They regret what they didn't do.
Come on.
It's true.
I remember Gary Vee said this one time. He was like 6 years ago. Gary was like, because the topic was a lot of young men always come to him, right?
He's got the young guys.
Yeah.
He's so funny, like the way his voice is too, like his whole approach.
I love Gary, man.
Yeah.
But like a 25-year-old came to him and was like, man, I just feel like I'm not achieving as much in life, and like I feel like I'm, just not where I'm supposed to be. And Gary is like, you're 25, dude. Like, you can live 2 lifetimes. So like, you can mess up and then 5 years later start again. Like, so he was getting at that. But one point he really made that was so important was he was like, I encourage every young person once a year to just go to a nursing home and talk to about five people in there.
It's good advice.
He's like, all you're going to see on the faces of these people is regret. And when you talk to them, you're like, man, if I was your age again, I'll do this. And you're like, you need that. Because if you think that you ain't, gotten that far, go talk to them.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Might as well try to. I mean, you might as well try to go for a life well lived. Yeah. And make a positive impact if you can. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, what the heck? So you're going to just coast by, for me, get a regular job and, do my thing. Yes. Family and stuff like that, retire, but I don't know. I feel like I'd rather risk everything and get after it and do something big and really contribute, because that's what I think God put us on the earth for. I think that we all have a special gift, and it would surprise the heck out of somebody when they uncover and they realize, holy crap, this whole time I could have done something amazing. It doesn't matter where you're at, what space.
That's why you got to be around people that have done something. You get what I'm saying? It's not until you get around people that are so much better than you, where it's like, wow. And you have to put yourself in rooms where you are the weakest, where you are not the smartest, where you make the least amount of money. Like, do you know? It's either two things that's going to happen at that table. Is that you're either going to be threatened, where you feel like, man, like I don't belong. Like, I'm scared to be around elevation, like people of status. Yeah. Or you're going to feed into it. Like, man, it's such a blessing. Like, I need to soak up everything I can so I can get to where there's only 2 people. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. And it's like, you got to grab that. Like, if you want to go forward in life, I believe in wise counsel and changing your own circle, man.
Well, I want to thank you too, because you're wise counsel to me sometimes, man. I know I ask you questions that a 4-year-old will ask, but I appreciate you for that. And I think some of where my confidence comes from too, with all this, when my company, we sponsored school, 2 schools. It ended up being 1,200. I thought it was going to be 600 kids, which is great. So they got financial principles taught to them, how to create a budget, how not to go in debt, how to build wealth, and how to give back specifically.
Beautiful.
So yeah, it was great. And we had a sponsorship breakfast when I was at the Entree Leadership. And another wave came over me. I went right up to Ken Coleman, just a Ken Coleman show. And he was one of the thought leaders who spoke at the conference as well. And it was great, fantastic, some of the best companies all over the world. And when I went up to him and shared it, later that day too, I remember there was not many people in the lobby, and I came out while there was somebody speaking, and I saw him just getting a cup of coffee and casually said hello. And it felt like he was a friend, normal. So I'm like, gonna get in front of, do a workshop, try to get in front of John Gordon, ask him another question. Because when I did a certification, and when we went into breakout sessions, I was sort of leading those sessions a little bit naturally, because prior I asked John a question and I kept mentioning Ride the Wave too, and did a couple of things where that stuck out. So in the background, and there's a book by John called The Seed. I've been planting seeds a little bit, just throwing it against the wall once in a while, sending emails out, because I mean, right, Mark, doesn't it feel like sometimes we have a small team right now, but we're a little bit sitting just waiting for it to come through? Like, we're really sitting on something great. And if I had more validate or more people that would push back on it, maybe a friend pushed back a little bit on my qualifications at one point, but it seems like there hasn't been people that saying it's a bad idea or anything. But for me, when it comes to projects and things like that, to take it back to distractions, stuff like that, social media could be a distraction, or what I'm looking at within social media. And I'll notice I get numb as heck, and I'm just, and then before you know it, it turns 11 o'clock.
It's intentional, man.
When I'm getting emails or texts that I shouldn't be looking into when I'm focusing on a project, stuff like that. So that's the battle for me right now, is prioritizing and not getting caught up in things that are going to take me away from the work that needs to be done. And it's tough to make it, to bring it home. Yeah.
I mean, with it, you got to understand the battle that you're in, right? So this is why I always look at things from a spiritual aspect. What has kept me in the game to keep going, and what is keeping me out of the game, right? So basically what I mean is this, there's something that is pulling you towards where you're supposed to be going, but then there's that thing that's keeping you stuck. What battle is that? Because both of them are spiritual, right? So it's the spiritual aspect of I have to get you distracted enough, right, so that you don't move, which is like paralyze you, or going back to what I said, let's get you this way so that you can focus on the good things, right? And if you don't, like I like how Jesus put it, where he says, my sheep know my voice, right? And it's such a powerful aspect, because as a shepherd, I listened to this documentary on shepherding, and it was so powerful. The guy was like, it was like 100 sheep, and the interview asked the shepherd, he's like, well, how do they know that you are the shepherd, right? And I was like, man, this is getting good.
Yeah.
And he said, I know every single one of them, like, individually. He was like that. And she was like, how in the world is that possible? He said, in order for them to know my voice, it takes me 1 year of me being in relationship with them, calling them every single day, spending time with them. It takes them 1 year. Well, it takes that shepherd 1 year to spend time with that flock, to the point where he can be far away, and all he got to do is make a certain sound, and the whole flock just comes to his voice. And she was like, it's crazy, because another guy called out to the sheep and they never moved. But when the shepherd came, and he didn't even say, hey, come here. He just made a sound, and they all moved. Away. And then the dog came and instructed them, the little sheep dog. Yeah. I was like, man. Yeah. I said, Jesus is so powerful when he said that.
Who do you want to be your shepherd?
Yeah.
Do you want it to be money? Do you want it to be the cars? Do you want it to be drugs, sex? What is your shepherd that you want to point to, that you feel would give you the most ethical grounds, because I feel like everybody deep down as a human wants to do good, and because not doing good is painful, it gives you a negative repercussion. And I've got a question for you. Temptation, things like that, doing things that we know we shouldn't. Peter or Jesus saying, Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times. Why would Jesus do that? Why would he knew he wasn't strong enough, would deny 3 times. To me, that was a little bit interesting, because I felt like, well, is that an allowance then? Is God allowing that to happen to remind us for something during this journey? Or is that just like, why would he allow that?
So with it,
or do that?
And so in like a couple of verses before, like the previous chapter, or in another book, I forgot. But Jesus said something to Peter, and he was like, I pray that your faith fell not. Right? That was the one prayer we see that Jesus literally said over his disciple. He said, I pray that your faith fell not. Now, what did Jesus know that Peter didn't know? Because he didn't understand. He didn't even understand when Jesus mentioned that. Where it's like, Peter is like, no, I'll never deny you. Jesus, I'm a ride for you. I'm going to die for you.
Right.
They're going to have to kill me. And Jesus hushed that up and said, no, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times.
Yeah.
And I think is that, and people need to understand this about God, because they have the thing is, well, why would God allow evil? Why would this happen? Why would that happen? Number one, to know that Satan is the God of this world. He is the prince of the air, right? So there's a battle going on. If you read in Genesis 1, it literally says this. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now watch verse 2. Nobody ever talks about this. It says, now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the surface. Now, why is that important? Because what was the earth like before God started creating stuff?
It's chaotic.
It was chaotic. But where did Satan go to with all of the angels that followed him? He didn't come to the perfect world that we know it as today. He was already dwelling in this. So the earth was already in an actual state. That's why God had to come fix it up. He had to start forming stuff. Fast forward that to the aspect of him now being sovereign. God now says, you know what? I'm going to have somebody who represents me on earth is going to be a human. Now Satan is getting mad about that because he was here before the human. So how does he have more dominion over me? Right? So with that, God is this, right? God has foreknowledge, and he also predestined things. Just because God know it is going to happen doesn't mean that he predestined it to happen. Right? Like, really follow me. If there is a different team out here that is trying to come against you, right? There's things that God allows to test you, but he doesn't tempt you. If 2 different things.
Yeah, no, interesting. And if the gift ultimately is to find out who you are and you're a child of God, and then walk with him in heaven, what great gift to realize that throughout your life. So one of my thoughts is that, like, it was all, if he's sovereign, orchestrated for an experience, because like yin and yang, you have to have one without the other. Like, how would you know you're not a good person unless somebody else was out there committing a crime that you're against? Almost I had a thought with that, love your enemies one time, where what you've done is a little bit of a sacrifice to realize who I'm not. So thank you. I love you. Like that kind of thing, tying it in that way. But if he were to create that, it would give us an experience, because it would be a paradigm that would be a duality, good and evil. Otherwise we wouldn't really have that realm of experience. And if that is the case, it's really, what are you going to do with it? Us going in confused, not knowing who we are, why we're here per se, and then having different avenues. But what better way we come from God, and it was this, the Holy Trinity and swirling, we're love, then we're pretending that we're not, we're cut off from that, to get on a journey to be of a revealing process, to have an understanding of who we are later. If that was just some thoughts that I've had through the years, but I mean, what a great, amazing gift if that was the case and he was sovereign really with the story, because all that wrath and all that stuff, when I'm looking at it, is like, okay, it's a gauge to have an understanding that he doesn't like things like, which is in our moral code. He doesn't like the things that are evil and that go against innocence and are war and things like that. That's what's in there. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah. So it's
I know that's very loaded.
Yeah, but it's it's really straightforward to the point that it's the free aspect of love, right? I say this all the time to people. God loves us enough not to force us into heaven, right? If I have to force you here, I do not love you. You're basically a robot at that point. And it's actually slavery at that point, where it's like, if you are here on earth and you're like, I don't want nothing to do with God, right? He doesn't, I don't really care about him. He doesn't matter to me. And then you die. And then you expect to go to this place where God is. And he's like, well, your whole life, I tried to call you. Like, I've been pulling at your heart.
Yeah.
And you denied me. And this is why Jesus said there would be those in the end times that say, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name? Didn't we cast out demons and do miracles? And he'll say, depart from me, I never knew you.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's why I think it's so that counters distraction. That's the word of the year for me, because that's definitely a good tactic to take people away from noticing signs. That day I woke up, or that time I wake up, and why does it say 9/11 on the clock every time? Every time I'm looking at the clock, why does it have a specific number? And then I look into that and there's some like thing behind that. You know, I do think that patterns and certain things are signs, but the distractions of everything that we have going on, being busy, needing to pick up the kids, do the groceries, we're not looking under the hood.
Yeah.
And then everybody's wondering why everything's falling apart. But it takes people like what we're doing, us, within their own capabilities and realm, I think, to stand up in their little, wherever it is. You mentioned this when we were eating too at one point. You said yourself, it's each individual that you interact with. It wouldn't matter if you were working at a Burger King. It wouldn't matter what job you have, because you would bring yourself into it and try to lift people up.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. It's what I'm called to do. It's walking in that calling.
It's
like
love.
People try to find fulfillment in the good things, the things that, the heart desires, right? But it's like fulfillment is only found in purpose. Like it's not found in instant gratification. Fulfillment is such a gem, and it's such a something that's sacred, because it takes time to birth out. Right. And anything that has been fulfilled has been completed. So that means that this work was already finished before you even got to the realization or the revelation that this is what you're supposed to be doing.
I feel like right now we've already been victorious. We're doing things to step into it. And there's a reconciliation delay.
That's it.
That comes for, and there's science behind. I had mentioned the Matthew McConaughey one time, the time dilation in space and things like that, and how they get out of a ship way out there, and it's 30 years here. I know.
Yeah.
I was crying like a little baby child, by the way, when he was looking at his kids and they were 30. What a scene that was. I was like,
Bro, when he was on the planet, and I think it was like 5 years every hour.
Yeah, it was like, he was on there for an hour, and it was like
scene?
30 years old. I know.
Oh my God.
But
hurry up.
if God came through a virgin birth, it would take so long.
Oh yeah.
And he'd be way beyond anything that we could comprehend in our feeble minds, transcending time and space. So if he was going to come back, it would take a long time, and all those plans, I think, are going to be reconciled. There's a time delay.
No, like God. So it says in the beginning, God said. So His word, and this is when it gets so deep. Oh, I love His word. When He spoke it, it came.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. There's no So what makes God is these things right here. God has to be God on these three bases. He has to exist outside of time, space, and matter, right? Because in order for me to create the beginning, I have to be outside of the beginning.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? In order for me to create this thing called time, I have to be outside of it in order to function in it, right? So God literally went into time, right? That doesn't take that long for the creator to do, right? Now, it takes us longer to get to space. This is why they say, I was going to take this many years and this, because you're not God.
All right. So a little bit of my interpretation was
it's backwards.
All right. Because it could be done in an instant.
Yeah.
All right. No, I get it. I guess if you're right, if you have full autonomy it's interesting.
Yeah. It's like God is, there's still things we would never know.
Yeah.
It's just our minds are we can't comprehend it.
No.
And that's why Jesus kept saying the kingdom of heaven is like, because if he was to truly show you it, you wouldn't be able to comprehend it. So he has to bring it
in stories and dumb it down for us. But I also stories are the way we connect. Abraham Lincoln, the reason why, and Lincoln on Leadership, I think something like that is a book about Lincoln, his approach. He really told a lot of stories within his management style. Yeah. It really was story-based things. And he sat down with a lot of people that were everyday average. Like when we get to a point, one of the things that we want to do is get a portable set, go to places, portable podcast set, go to some spots where maybe some homeless people are that we could interview and talk to. He did a lot of, I think, talking to people and getting to know that and how we relate to anything. Pinocchio, Joseph Campbell is on Netflix. He's old school. He's influenced certain people in psychology and stuff like that that are well known. And a guy like that has taken various like Native American stories and showed them how it's embedded and scripture embedded in like Pinocchio. You go in the belly of the beast, you come out. It's in everything. It's Marvel movies. It's connected. So
I love Marvel movies.
Yeah, I mean, but right. I mean, the latest what's the one with the whole crew's funny too. Sometimes the guy's an animal, like an actual fluffy animal. Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm all right. I can't believe I didn't think of that.
It was in my mind, but
the latest one was so biblical. Man.
The raccoon.
The latest, the raccoon. That's what I meant.
Did you see the Eternals?
Yeah, I like the Eternals.
Bro, that one is literally all about the sons of God.
Yeah. I've seen that.
So with the son of Genesis 6, where it says the sons of God came into to the women, and then the Nephilim came. Right. It's the story about them. Right. But people don't know like how do humans know how to do weaponry? Yeah. So like all of that. Boy, that movie was so good.
You could tell a lot about that. And then on the other end, you could see the most demonic poster ever for a horror movie and realize here's the war. Like here's what's going on,
bro. But it's all distractions. Everything is broken focus, right? When we were born, we were focused, right? Our focus was solely on our parents, right? Literally, when I'm watching my daughter in the middle of the night, 3 a.m, and now my wife gotta breastfeed her in our bed. The only thing my daughter understands is that mommy has the food. I'm hungry, and guess what? When I'm tired, I'm going to sleep. Yeah. But when I wake up, where's the food? The baby is so fun. It don't care about nothing else. Right. It's not until you keep growing up where it's like, oh, there go a toy. Oh, what's that? Oh, somebody smiling in my face. They're so distracted because all of this is now in front of them. I know. And they're coming to
the lights. Yeah,
bro. And then they, want to learn as you grow, as you start to see all these different distractions. Or as a child, they're not distractions. They're like stuff you want to learn about because you're seeing all this new stuff for the first time. You're like, okay, what is this? I want to
stop being on the table, Mark.
Yeah, no, you're good. He's a table bagger. Mark gets very passionate and he speaks with his hands. Let's go.
No, I love it. No, but you
make a good point. You make a good point because awesome. Are you saying that kids, their distractions just become overwhelming to them? Or what did you mean by that?
Not necessarily overwhelming. It's like, as you're a child and you're seeing things for the first time, it's not overwhelming. As until you get older. When you get older, then it's overwhelming because after you learned about these new things and learned all these new skills and then that's when it becomes overwhelming because you now have knowledge of a lot of different things and you have your hands and you partake in a lot of different things. You can get caught up.
Yeah.
And that makes everything sense. That you learn. Yeah,
I was just looking to clarify that
you're doing.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're a child, it's not a distraction. Is how you say? I don't know. Like
more impulse, and like Javon was saying, you're relying, you're more dependent.
You're focused.
So the world also could program you a lot quicker at that age because you are absorbing things, I think, as it's more spontaneous.
That's why right now is kids, I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
But I love it at the same time. They're just getting indoctrinated faster than we did, right? So instead of going to a book, you can go to an iPad, right? So what would take time to get distracted by now takes less than a second. And that is the biggest thing. Like I feel like the enemy understands that. If I could just get into the subconscious mind of a person and the conscious mind of a person, it will dictate how they walk. Right. So it's literally like you would say like, yo, why would a person do that? Look at what the subconscious is being fed every single day.
Yeah. Because I saw somebody post something about where like the Jesus commercial for the Super Bowl was this like conspiracy, right? And then I looked it up and it was like what I saw anyway. When I just looked it up, it was the guy in the family Hobby Lobby, the arts crafts. The guy's a billionaire and he's giving money to evangelicals. I don't know anything outside of a quick proactive review there. Yeah. But my thought there is like, and I could be wrong, maybe that there's ties that gentleman has or whatever. But when I saw like, all right, what was their source when they received that information? Was that something that just somebody told them? Did they listen to it on the news? Were they receiving that information from where? Because why would they not? And then to put that out there, because it wasn't true where it came from, it like creates this distraction pool of just misinformation too, or not misinformation, but yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'm going with that.
I mean, when I looked at it, like the Jesus Gets Us thing is, it was kind of like a self-centered type of gospel where it's good, but it's distracting you from the true message.
I don't really think it matters though.
It matters when you understand how Satan wants to get your eyes off of the trueness of the gospel. So it's like this, the spirit of what I was seeing that came behind was that Jesus accepts you as you are with no repentance. Like there's no, oh, well, I don't really have to change. Like Jesus gets us, but we don't have to get him. So
do you think that that's how that was portrayed, or that
is literally the spirit behind it?
So it's not I don't know if that was the intention.
I think that the spirit of it. This is what I'm saying.
All right, so
is that you have to know in the spirit what that truly means. Like everybody uses Jesus, but is that the same Jesus of the Bible? Right? And if you don't have no scripture to back that up, what Jesus are you talking about? Is that a Jesus that you hope to serve? Is that a Jesus that you created in your mind? Right? Like how many Jesuses were created out of the aspect of we wanted to fit our religion?
Right. Okay. So you're saying that it was in a particular mold, or if people see that, they would see the good side or that kind of thing, thinking that there should be no repentance or
So it's I can be
you're responsible to be whoever and do whatever at all times. You don't have to check in with no like punishment or anything like that.
Not so much punishment. It's the commercial was something called progressive Christianity. Right now we're living in a generation where progressive Christianity is I can have Jesus and crystals. Right. I can have Jesus and Islam. I can have Jesus and da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. So you're saying, I don't want just Jesus. I don't want all of what he has for me.
External things.
I want him and, you get what I'm saying?
And Mark said, and I completely agreed with him, the church is internal a while back. That was early on. And I don't know whether that was me and you sitting down one-on-one when you had said that the church is in the inside, and that's the point of, and those are those distractions into external things, because really it's in here, it's in the inside from the inside out, and having those items or things like that creates that external looking for something to fill constantly. I think that always is the case, but until somebody works on it inside.
So it's the church by definition of biblical speaking is the church is the incubator where the kingdom of God flows through, right? So we are the temple of God. When you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior and the Holy Spirit now consumes you, your body is the temple of God. What makes the church is other believers coming together as one, under one spirit, one sound, one Lord, one God, right? That's what makes the church, the ecclesia. So the Spirit of God dwells in the temple of man. So the reason why this like an individual isn't the church, collectively we're the church, but the temple is a representation of the Old Testament temple period, right, where Yahweh dwelled in the Holy of Holies within the temple. When the temple period, like Jesus was born in the second temple period, but when that temple fell, we no longer need it because the Holy Spirit was now sent and he dwells within our temple.
Right. It was a replacement from
of the one
physical
exactly.
Ark of the Covenant and dwelling place into a receiving each person a gift.
That's
there from
right. That's why they say that's why some people say, or I don't know, I think it's in the Bible. That's why they say is a power made flesh. Like a character on Street Fighter, Akuma. He's a power made flesh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's like almost like Jesus.
Right.
He was a power that was made flesh.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, Scripture says so. It was that's John 1 you're getting at. So it's in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Verse 14 says, and the Word dwelt among us. Right? It's God was made flesh. So people would say it's a force, it's a power. Nope. Like it's literally God manifesting himself in Jesus Christ, the human body, Jesus Christ, and he dwelt among his creation to save his creation.
But also experiencing the world with us to every type of emotion and anything you could ever imagine, to the extremes, extreme pain, extreme torture, to good times, and going on having parties and things like that. So the full human experience there, really not going in and trying to control things.
The only God who did it, bro. Right. He said, you know what? Let me just go down.
But take away anything if somebody or if I practically didn't believe or anything like that. It's just an amazing story to start with somebody who's right now, maybe they even say, oh, I never would do that, or they go against, and they haven't really looked under the hood. It's just a cool story. Like you could look at it like you can start it out reading a fantasy novel and just see what happens. For an intro.
Most people do, but and it's good knowledge. You know what I'm saying?
And the reason why I say that is just because if it were to become more for somebody, at least they're looking. And that, to me, I'm a little bit different. You may not agree completely with me. I think some people won't, but I also think that it could come in different ways. And there's connections with Islam, there's connections with Hinduism. There seems to be a sacrifice involved in a flood or like a catastrophe. There's particular patterns. I don't know all of them. But I do think that aspect is interesting. Like, for example, in South America, or certain tribes do these dances where there's a death and a resurrection within there. So, I don't know. We talked about where we're at too. If I was born in, Asia somewhere or Japan, in the middle of nowhere, maybe I'd be into Buddhism or something like that. I guess, is that going to the same one divine connection?
Yeah, so
taking a different road.
No, so it will all lead you into the spiritual world, right? So when you see consistency of practices, that is letting you know that this is the way to enter. So it's not like, one person got it right, one person got it wrong. They're all tapping into the spiritual aspect. So you have to, understand that this is we are spiritual beings experiencing a physical world.
Right.
That is why we desire to keep getting into the spiritual, right? So number two, the aspect of there's ways that you enter the spirit world legitimately and then illegitimately.
Right.
What are you doing to enter into this way? Because if you go on this other side and you are not commissioned or have no authority to be over here, you don't want to know what's on the other side waiting for you. And this is why we say test the spirits, because like the Bible talks about familiar spirits, where people say, I see my grandmother, I see my uncle, he passed away, and I see the ancestors. I'm seeing people in my dreams. They're speaking to me. They're giving me wisdom. Those are familiar spirits, right? The Bible speaks out against it. Was it a practice before Christianity and Judaism? Yes. All of this was going on in Mesopotamia. Abraham was not an Israelite. He came from the land of Mesopotamia. So what knowledge was he doing way before? And this is why God said, leave your land, because I need to get you away from all of these practices that they're doing. So it's this, the Bible, like, people think Christianity is like from start to finish, like this is it, right? But it's like you're missing the aspects before Abraham where God was calling. So yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
No, absolutely. And Javon, we'll continue with other stuff. I, again, appreciate you coming on for another time yet again. And I definitely think that distractions is a thing. And, anybody out there, you are somebody that has a gift within you. And even if right now it's a tough time, you feel like the distractions are taking over you and you're stressed out, take some time to yourself, maybe a little bit of a break, vacation, read a bit. I definitely think that is something that I can improve on. And with technology and everything that we're doing, the only thing that we can do is get in the way of ourselves, right? And distractions plays a part. But I see it. I see the tactic, man. I see what the devil's doing. And you know what? Let me tell you, Javon, I don't want any part in that, man. I want to bring the love through Wave and have great people like you on that could help people out. And I think that we're headed in that direction. And it's really great, man.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you. Mark, anything? Before we cruise out of here?
I would just like to say maybe to the people that if you're someone like me and you've been through a lot and you're at a place where you have questions and you're internally battling with yourself, just sit back and take a breather and just think about what have you done with your life and where do you feel like you want your life to go, and internally fight with yourself, not to the aspect of beating yourself down, but build yourself up. Because if you don't build yourself up, nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody else is going to help you.
Yeah, and
I've learned that a long time ago. Yeah. That's why I walk around with the attitude that I have. I've been through enough in my 46 years so far of living where I can say to myself, I can care less about who thinks this about me. I can care less who says this about me, because they never walked in my shoes. They don't have my particular type of mindset where, I've constantly fighting and building with myself to where I want to be and where I need to be.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it gets tough. It's hard, and we got in a couple months, maybe 3 tops, a book coming out called The Wave Maker, which in order to have conversations like this, we have to start approaching people humanely. And I think that some of the tools in there are going to be a little bit of a start to give some practical steps, practical advice for people to be able to approach some other people that they normally wouldn't, because such a value to have these type of conversations to get to know people, because everybody does have a story and a unique point of view. And energy goes where energy flows where focus goes, Anthony Robbins says. I know you guys are probably so annoyed at me saying that all the time, but it really does. What are we focused on? What are we, do we have, there was a period of time, and I'll end it I know, because I can go all day. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you both,
the country too, overall, the United States, we had a purpose, whether it was going into space, whether it was to create a really great home for our family and stuff like that. And I think it's just from a business perspective, we have a vision or a commitment statement. I think it's a vision we're lacking a little bit. We're just kind of all around, and it's kind of chaotic right now. But I also believe that it really cannot happen unless somebody just wakes up and then they create it from the inside out. And we have more power than than people think. I think that it's amazing, because if this thing pans out, it's just perfect example of me not knowing
it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Love that.
Walk by faith, brother. Walk by faith.
Yeah, faith. And this was Carmelo, one of the things that faith is where the fight is. 100% sure. And believing that you're going to be okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So everyone, thank you again for riding the wave with us. If you like what you have heard, I'm sure, I don't know why, if you wouldn't, please scroll down, www.ridethewave.org. All our social media links are there. Subscribe to this. We appreciate you. And also, we would love to see you on the show. So thank you again. Have a great day, great evening. Javon, thanks for coming through. We appreciate you, man. All right. Thank you. Peace. Thanks, everyone, for joining us at the Wave Podcast. If you like the content and want to see more, please subscribe to all our social media platforms. They'll be listed below. See you next time.